Hi, I'm Nandini, Tech2's resident internet wali, and I'm with Chris Crowell today, who is a critically acclaimed game designer who's worked on games like The Sims, NASCAR, Tiger Woods, and other games like that. You would know about this World Health Organization report, which was recently released.
Yes.
It basically has now classified gaming as a legit disease.
Gaming disorder is a particular pattern of gaming behavior.
I'm sure like if any of the parents, especially Indian parents, if they're watching this video, they'd be going like this, that I told these kids. I'm sure because Indian parents are convinced that if you are, you're wasting your life and you're wasting your time if you're watching too many games. So as a person who makes a living out of creating videos, video games. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really important to think about what is the experience of playing a game, what's happening when you're playing a game. Your inability to have satisfaction with the real life leads you to spend inordinate amount of time getting those kinds of satisfactions from your drug of choice or your gambling or whatever, right? Like those things all kind of trigger this reward dopamine rush in your head. Something that I think is really different about games, the game space is a virtual world where the player has control. It's a concept called agency, where you have the ability to take actions that will result in some kind of meaningful change in the game space. And so, however frustrated you are in the real world, you can go into a game and do these kinds of things. And sometimes you feel like you really want a very, very hard challenge and that you will feel tremendous satisfaction for overcoming that. And other times, you've had kind of a rough day and you just want to play something simple and just pop some bubbles and kind of relax and have a good time. So, as a game developer and as a parent, I have a level of concern that we have to, as parents, we need to watch what our kids are doing and teach them how to make good decisions. Like inside of a game, there's game systems that if you do something really dumb, you will fail. And then if you think it through and you plan and you do all these kinds of things, you can succeed. And as a parent, you don't want to say, no, you can't do this thing that you're in control of, and it makes you feel successful. I wouldn't recommend that somebody just cuts that off. I think that what you should do is try to understand why is somebody really engaging in this game space? What are they getting out of it? And just try to kind of meet them halfway. It's not like a chemical dependency, like heavy drugs, and it doesn't have the destructive capacity of, say, like a gambling addiction. But there is something that you're getting out of that, and it's a creative satisfaction that you can get out of these kinds of things.
Do you think that for a gamer, when we talk about addiction, gamers themselves also need to draw a line? I
think that's really important, is to, in all aspects, right? Whether you're just addicted to driving too fast on the road, or whether you're gaming too much and you're waking up too tired to go to class the next day, or all these kinds of things. This is something that is a skill that you need to have if you're going to be a functioning adult in the world, or you're just going to be a functioning human being. This is a thing you need to learn how to do. And games are a temptation, and it's interesting, within the virtual world of a game, you always have these limitations. You can't just do things. But because it takes place in the world of the mind, and it's this artificial universe that you're creating in your head as you're playing the game, it's easy to sort of lose track of the actual real world that's going on temporarily while you're playing the game.
The conversation is always about that gaming leads to addiction or violence or something like that. Now, in case of EA, they have been struggling with the accusations of forcing people into gambling, or PUBG, like they're saying that they're forcing people, the gun violence is increasing because of PUBG. So do you think these allegations are true?
Generally, no. So just as a broad sweeping statement, the answer is no. I actually did some research last year. I was writing an article on violence in North American society, which is, I'm from North America. And so I looked at I did a lot of research, and I found the FBI crime statistics, which I think was through 2014 was the last published piece where they actually did like a comprehensive view of violence. And effectively, from about the time that console games came out and people started playing these really, really violent games, the crime at that point was at a certain level, and the population of gamers was kind of down here. And then as time progressed, the number of gamers went up and the crime rate went down.
So with NGIP, you're basically now working on a project to bring in gaming into education, right?
Yes.
Like syncing it together.
Right.
Now, I want to ask, one, how would the project be like?
Yeah.
And the second thing, that what do you think about traditional teaching versus teaching with gaming?
You know, you can have a teacher at the front of the class can explain the concept of a hamburger or whatever, right? I'm just using a hamburger as a thing that you would want to learn about, and maybe she can show you a video and say, oh, this is what this is. But then to be able to experience that and have some way to interact with this concept and gain greater perspective by succeeding and failing at working on experiments having to do with this, you can map out a much better comprehension of this piece of learning that you need to learn. Right. And so a game makes that accessible, and it's a focused activity, and you have this clear concept of I'm succeeding at this, or I'm failing at this. And if we build it in such a way that your success and failure is absolutely based on your mastery of that concept, it's not about how well you drive or kick or anything like that. It's about how well you understand and can use this concept from the classroom. That's where the games can come in and be really, really powerful.
Is there any anecdote or something you could share where you've seen how a game that you worked on, or any other game which has actually brought in a positive change on someone?
Yes, absolutely. So when I was working on The Sims, we had a wonderful thing happen where, it was very touching. Yeah. Because the players use these games, the software, in all these unintended ways. So there was a teenager who had a horrible home life, like abusive father and all these things. And she used her Sims to create a comic book and created a storyline where she was able to kind of talk about this thing that she could not talk about. It's really profound within the game space, and with these big kind of sandbox, open play kinds of virtual spaces that allows people to kind of go into places that they can't do in real life. There's a lot of pressure to explore all of these kinds of sensitive topics. So this is one example where she was able to feel safe within her game zone, right, and kind of make this thing and then send it to us and say, hey, this really helped me work my way through this.
So final question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is the advice, keeping in mind how good gaming can actually be, and keeping in mind the whole taboo, you can say, or the concern that we have that gaming can turn into violence and addiction and all of that.
Right.
What is the advice that you would give to gamers, developers, and even parents who are super concerned, Indian parents?
So the idea is that a game it's entertainment, and in the case of education, it's a tool.
Right.
And so if you think of a tool, it's like a hammer. You can use a hammer to do all kinds of really constructive things, and you can use it to do destructive things too. So it's not, games are not some sort of silver bullet that is just, oh, this is the unicorn and it has nothing but goodness associated with it and it makes everything it touches marvelous. Games are just part of the human continuum, and there's tremendous upside to it because it's these kind of compressed nuggets of living where you can really try to do this very rich experience, right. But it also has some side effects that people need to be aware of, that there's like, hey, this is pretty rich, right? And so you need to exercise some control, and that's just a thing that everybody, honestly, every life needs to have that. You know what, games are not just pew, 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 pew. There's a rich array. All books are not just books about pew, 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 pew. There are books that are nothing but that, but there are also very thoughtful books, and like books just talk about everything. And games are that way too. Yeah. And if you talk to your kids or anybody about like, well, what kinds of games are out there, you'll be surprised because it's human beings making them now, and it's across everything that human beings think about.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. It was so good talking to you.
Good.
Guys, if you haven't already, subscribe to Tech2's YouTube channel. Keep watching our videos, and bye-bye.